This episode focuses on Akebi and her friends going on an outing to buy supplies for the athletics festival. Unlike the past few episodes, I didn't really feel like there was an overarching theme for this one. If there is, I couldn't really put my finger on exactly what it would be. That doesn't mean there are no themes whatsoever in the episode, but they only felt like highlighted moments or personal themes for specific characters rather than a main message like some of the previous episodes. This episode was much more us just being along for the ride with this group of friends as they hang out for the day. I do wonder exactly what we are building to now since we are on episode 9 of this show and I believe it's only one core. It definitely looks like we will be ending on the athletics festival, but I'm hoping we will be getting something a little extra for the finale. Maybe a stage performance from Akebi? If they did something like that with the same artistic flair as the scene a couple episodes ago with Erika playing the piano, I think that would be a great touch to the end of the show. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens, so for now let's go over what happened this episode. After the intro, we start with Akebi getting on the bus and meeting up with Kojo, who is reading a book. She's so engrossed that she doesn't even acknowledge Akebi when she gets on and sits down next to her. Of course, Akebi just smiles as she is too nice and doesn't want to interrupt her friend's reading. Eventually, they reach their destination and Kojo finishes her book. As she is still lost in her thoughts, Akebi is the one that has to push the button to get off at the stop, and at this point Akebi does finally speak up and greets Kojo. As they are walking to the mall, Kojo remarks how she always gets too engrossed in books and regularly misses her stops because of it. Honestly, I can relate to that a lot. I actually don't read too often in public, partially because I'm worried about things like that happening where I just won't pay attention to my surroundings. I do read a lot, but I mostly keep it to times when I can put my whole focus on what I'm reading, so it usually ends up being times like when I lay down to go to sleep or right after I wake up in the morning. If I do read somewhere else that is more public, there have often been times where I won't even realize that someone is trying to talk to me. Eventually, the two are spotted by Erika and Usagihara, who are already waiting for them. Everyone remarks how they look good in casual clothes, and I have to agree. Maybe it's just a bit of the novelty factor since the whole show is literally built around the premise of how the school uniforms look, but it's always interesting to see how they will portray characters dressing outside of a school environment. As the girls are thinking about how to navigate the mall, Akebi speaks up and offers to be the guide since she has come to this mall regularly with her family since she was a kid. We also get further confirmation of Erika's sheltered rich kid upbringing as she says she's never been to a place like this before. As they explore the place, Akebi reminisces about her and her sister playing in the play area while they wait for their parents to finish shopping. I did think it was cute that all of the memories Akebi has of the place seem to be related to food. But also, how cute was little kid Akebi and her sister? They were just adorable in the flashbacks. As the girls are exploring the mall, they end up getting distracted by the numerous different shops, as you might expect from a bunch of teenagers. They start going around and window shopping for all the different stores. I actually grew up with a mall within about 20 minutes of my home, so I often have memories of going there with my friends and doing the same thing. We would spend most of our time at the stores that sold video games and anime-related things. I remember using the demo displays they had for various consoles and games. I'm sure we would have spent even more time there if they had extra things like a movie theater or an arcade. I did like how they showed the different girls looking for shops that cater to their interests, like how Erika seems to find a shop that has a lot of outdoor and camping gear. Usagihara and Akebi are completely engrossed in exploring every nook and cranny of the mall, and Erika makes an offhand remark along the lines of, "Shouldn't we be buying the supplies?" The second they started exploring the different areas of the mall, I knew they would be forgetting all about their initial purpose. In fact, I'm pretty sure they completely forgot all about the supplies, even at the end when they are ready to go home. I actually kept thinking they were going to pull that gag where they remember right as they get on the bus and it starts leaving. I could also envision Akebi getting home and her mom asking her casually like, "Were you able to get everything?" And Akebi getting flustered as she realized they never actually got what they came there for. Unfortunately, we didn't get anything like that, so at this point I think the only thing we can expect is maybe an offhand comment saying they had to go back and pick up what was needed in a future episode. In the end, it's not really that important. Being the book nerd that she is, of course Kojo would be the first one to spot the large bookstore that's in the mall. When they all go over to explore, Usagihara ends up asking if Kojo writes anything since it seems like something the literature club would do. Kojo does say that she wants to write, but can never decide on a theme, and how writing is different from reading, so maybe she's just specialized for the latter. I can definitely relate to this because I grew up absolutely loving video games. I still do really like games, but maybe because I don't have time to play them as much, I don't find myself obsessing as much as I used to. I wanted to be a game designer for the longest time, but when I actually started learning to make games and trying to put things into practice, I realized very quickly that making games and playing games are two very different things. I think this kind of touches on a point brought up in the second half of this episode. It starts when Akebi mentions the bookmark that Kojo was using at the start of the episode. She mentions how she loves the handmade look for it, and Kojo remarks that it was something that her mom made for her. The second they started talking about this topic, I just had a gut feeling that it would be lost. Maybe because they had already focused on it in the beginning, or possibly because she put out the death flag saying it's her good luck charm. When Kojo realizes it's lost, it's obvious that she's worried, and it's actually a pretty precious item for her. The girls all band together and start scouring the mall looking for the bookmark. At one point it looks like she even calls the front desk, which I'm really glad they did because this is such a common first step that I think a lot of people would take if they lost something in a public place, but it's something that anime seems to miss a lot of the times. They just run around looking for every possible way and never actually ask the staff. When she decides to give up, they make their way to the front entrance, and the bookmark is tied to the end of a balloon. Of course, it wouldn't be that easy to find it, so they did have to inject a little bit of manufactured drama here as a strong gust of wind blows the balloon out of her hand after she unties it. As Kojo watches the balloon flying away with her precious bookmark, we get a flashback montage to her as she grew up and was reading the books. We see the bookmark with her through all of these moments. We even see her winning an award for an essay in elementary school, and her declaring how she wants to write books when she gets older. This is the scene that stood out to me the most in this episode because it showcases that even if Kojo has realized that maybe she isn't cut out for writing, those memories and experiences are still important and have shaped who she is. Now, in a normal situation, I would fully expect this balloon to sail off into the sky, never to be seen again. But here, it ends up getting caught on a branch, allowing the girls to engineer a way to get the bookmark back. I did have to suspend my disbelief a little bit here, since it felt like they had way too much time of the balloon conveniently being caught in a tree. But eventually, Kojo is able to get her bookmark, and as they are celebrating their victory, it begins to rain. As all the other girls run for cover, Akebi stays out and begins frolicking in the rain, as one might expect from the free spirit that she is. The rest of the girls join her as they run off to the bus stop, and the rain finally stops, leaving them all soaked but with a nice sunny day to help them dry off. It's a very sweet ending as they all laugh while waiting for their ride home. Of course, even though they all have bags in their hands, I'm unsure if that's their own personal things they've bought or if it's the actual supplies they needed. At any rate, this was a great episode to just sit back and enjoy the atmosphere. It definitely had the feeling similar to the fourth episode where it's just a bunch of friends hanging out with each other. Let me know your thoughts on this episode in the comments. Feel free to like and subscribe, and as always, have a fantastic day.